Hello, and welcome to Perspectives on Neurodiversity, a podcast dedicated to exploring the myths and assumptions about neurodiverse life. I am your host, Christopher Scott Wyatt, speaking as the autistic me. As the father of two neurodiverse children, I often worry about their futures. Our oldest, we know, will likely be able to succeed in high school and probably college, but our youngest has special challenges. Those challenges are likely to become obstacles or even barriers in her future. Joining us today is Mr. Mark Lyons. Mr. Lyons and his son have set up SammySocksEtc.com, an online business, because Mr. Lyons and his family has faced the same question. What happens when an autistic individual becomes an adult? Mr. Lyons, thank you for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you first tell us about your son, Samuel?
Samuel is 25 years old. He was born in 1998. When he was 4 years old, he was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. Autism, that's what they called it in those days. We started getting him therapies and put him on the waiting list in Texas. That's where we're located. And it took till he was 17 years old to get up to the top of the list. We looked around at the local school districts when he got to be school age. We had put him in some private preschools, church schools that were able to handle him. We enjoyed those, and so did he. And then when he got to be kindergarten age, we looked around at the local public school, and we were not very happy with what we saw. So my wife, who's a former teacher, she decided to homeschool him. He was homeschooled until he was in 7th grade, and about that time, as a lot of children get to the point where they don't want to spend a lot of time doing things with their parents, and it was getting more difficult for her to get him to do things, so we decided to put him into the public school, and things had changed a bit. So he started 7th grade, and then he went all the way through, graduated from high school, and then went through what's called the 18-plus program, and aged out of that when he turned 22.
As a parent, I have talked about the schools failing our daughters, and we ended up homeschooling because of their special needs. Add into that the pandemic situation where online learning was not appropriate for them. Online education did not meet the needs of some of our special students. Again, I'm fortunate enough to have been an educator, to have been a professor, so I was able to homeschool our daughters. This seems to be a choice that many families with neurodiverse children have to make, is whether or not the public schools are meeting their needs. So your family chose to homeschool because the needs weren't being met.
Yes. Well, my wife, as said, after Sammy was born, she continued to teach for about another year and a half, and then decided she didn't want to be away from him, and so she retired from that. And that's when, even before she actually officially homeschooled him, she did lots and lots of things with him, took him all sorts of different places and did activities with him. But then, as I said, she decided to homeschool him because we weren't happy with what we saw at the local public school. Now, I was a teacher as well. And I taught in a different district than she did. We also looked at that school district, and at the time, we decided still to homeschool.
When I consider homeschooling, part of what we've had to work on are life skills that the school doesn't have time, quite honestly, to work on. We still have some personal hygiene issues with our youngest. What is your perspective on whether or not Samuel will be an independent adult living on his own? Or do you think he will always need supports?
I think he will always need supports. He also has personal hygiene issues. He was not really able to, he gets very distracted very, very easily. He has lots of anxiety issues, OCD issues. He does have meltdowns still, but being able to live on his own, he would need probably constant care.
You said he is 25 years old.
Yes.
This is something that a lot of autistic self-advocates, I don't think they forget, but it's easy to not take into consideration the needs of individuals like my daughter, like your son, where the barriers to independent living are significant. It is easy for me as an autistic individual to say, I should have certain rights, I should be listened to. I'm clearly verbal. I have the podcast, I write the blog, I've been a teacher. Employment isn't a concern for our oldest, who does have an autism diagnosis. Again, her mental abilities her cognitive skills will help her overcome the obstacles created by being neurodiverse. She'll be able to circumvent things, just like I'm using calendars and I use reminders. I'm sure she will learn those things. Not every autistic, not every neurodiverse individual can look forward to a truly independent living situation. What is your hope for Samuel?
Well, as we age as his parents, we've made provisions for his future when we're no longer able to care for him, whether we're too sick or we're not alive anymore. We have family members that are going to take over. We serve as his guardians, my wife and I. And so whenever we're not able to do that, then we've got provisions in place for a family member to be his guardian. We would like for him to be able to live in the house that we have, and then have maybe a family member live with him, or depending on the finances at the particular time, maybe have somebody live in with him. But again, he won't be able to live on his own.
And that's a difficult realization.
Yes.
You also have other children.
Yes.
So as a comparison, just like when I see my daughters, I'm sure that you've made that comparison. Some of your children are, for lack of a better word, typical. They've been able to go out into the world, have careers.
Yes.
What is it like then knowing that you have to make these special plans, and how do the siblings feel about this?
There's a big age difference between them. They're at age, I think, let's see now, 42, 40, and 39, and he's 25. So there's a big age difference. When he was growing up, they're from a previous marriage, so they were not around each other that much. But they've made the comments that you don't need to worry about Samuel when you're gone. We will watch out for him. We will take care of him. So that's there. Said even with the best laid plans, things can go awry. We have a special needs trust in place for him, but that's not funded at this point. And really the only way that would be funded is through life insurance policy proceeds. So if I die, then his special needs trust is funded until up to a certain point. If I get too old, then of course policies go away because they end after a certain point, and they can be kind of expensive to get those kind of policies. That's why we started SammySocksEtc, was to try to help procure additional funds for his financial independence.
So let's talk a little bit about SammySocksEtc.com. The reality is that many parents of disabled children, special needs children, neurodiverse children, however we wish to describe our children, we find it easier to create employment than to find employment.
Yes.
So can you talk about that reality that you have decided to create and collaborate with Samuel on a business?
Well, as he was getting closer to aging out of the 18 plus program of our local school district, we were looking at, his employment possibilities. And he did learn how to do things when he was at the 18 plus program. They would help him fold clothes, do laundry. They would go to the administrative office of the school district and sell coffee and pastries and stuff like that. So he helped out with that. But those are just short-lived things. They did have programs where some of their students would go work at a local hotel or a local grocery store. But Samuel was not really able to do that. He just doesn't have the capabilities of doing that. So we were looking at what we could do to help raise money for him and also have a safe and secure place for him to work. He gets distracted very easily. He doesn't have a long attention span, so he needs lots of breaks. So we first thought about having to make something. We would sell it that way, and that just didn't seem feasible. And so then we came upon the idea of selling a particular product, and that's where we came upon socks. And so he helps out with whenever we do get orders, he helps out fulfilling the orders, packaging the orders. Some of the times he picks out the socks for the customers because they're random choices. He helps us pick out new inventory. And so those are the kind of things we're looking at, mainly to have a safe and secure place for him to work. And then eventually as we get bigger, to be able to hire other people with different abilities as well.
Is Samuel verbal and able to communicate independently?
Yes, very much so.
Is he going to be actively engaged in the marketing and the media outreach for Sammy Socks?
We try that whenever we do like videos or things like that. He always wants to be done. So he doesn't always portray the happiest attitude. He just wants to be done with it. Is when are we going to be done? When are we going to be done? He'll do it. And a lot of times there are certain things that we do to get him to smile. Because if we ask him to smile, he just doesn't do it, or he has a kind of a weird face. But we have different tricks to get him to laugh and to smile. And when we've done those have been very successful kinds of things. He's just not always cooperative when he wants to do that.
So he has his own schedule.
Yes.
One of the complaints that activists have about the disabled is we often end up placing the children in fast food or janitorial services. They kind of end up doing these low-level, entry-level, low-skilled jobs, stocking shelves, things like that, cart collection at grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy Socks is selling clothing. You're selling the socks. You have some other products you sell as well.
Yes.
And this avoids that fast food janitorial track.
Yes.
So what sort of services and products are you selling?
Sammy Socks has socks for children, women, and men. I have various price points. I think they start at $4.50 up to $15.99 for socks. We also sell coffee from a local coffee company out of Austin. And we also sell tea and tea bags, cafe organic steep tea. We're looking at branching out into compression socks. And as we grow bigger, are able to financially add other apparel products as well, maybe shoelaces and maybe pajama pants and things like that. We do have the products available as single purchases, as in gift bags, gift boxes, and also in subscriptions.
And again, this is by being clothing, and then you also said tea and coffee. You're avoiding the fast food job. You're avoiding that fate that so many disabled individuals have, which is basically, as I said, the low skill, repetitive tasks that they assign to us and our children.
Yes.
How has Samuel reacted to the idea of the socks versus other employment?
Well, he wants it to do well. He always says, when is the sock business going to do well? Whenever we do have, orders for him to help out with, he'll do them. We have certain things he does, like he helps pack the packaging the orders. He helps pick them out. We have called an information baggie that has a postcard that tells about Sammy Socks, has a couple pieces of candy, discount coupons, a poem, usually about socks. And we have a slip of paper called Sammy Sayings. There are certain sayings that Sammy has said over and over since he started talking. Things like, this is taking too long. I want the day to be over. One more time to make it even. Things like that. And so we include those in it. We even have a couple products where we have T-shirts with some of Sammy's sayings on them. So he will help out with putting those baggies together. We have for children, we have what's called a bells and whistles bag. It has different kinds of small trinkets and toys. So when we're running low on those, he helps put those together. When we do have orders, he helps me take them to the post office to do that kind of thing. So he's involved in different aspects. He helps with it. He always wants to know when it's going to be over, how much longer, how many more does he have to do. He always has to know those kind of things. Has to kind of be in, he has to know what's happening.
You said he has some OCD traits.
Yes.
So that is why he wants to count things and have it a certain way and have that deadline.
Things have to be even. So whenever he asks us a question and we answer the question, we usually have to do it twice. There are certain things that, for example, when we pass by him, he's sitting in his chair or he's somewhere, he says, go around you. And we have to make a sound twice to go around. Sometimes it's 4 times, sometimes it's 8 times. And it depends on his mood at the time. So he is very much concerned about things being even. He has very specific routines about things. Things have to be done a certain way. He wears red T-shirts and black pants, and that's his wardrobe. We've tried to branch out to different things, but doesn't really want to do it. So we go back to the same kind of things there.
As a parent, you hope to get this going and know that he will be involved, but this is not a business that he can run. As the parent and the partner, you're running the business side of things.
Yes.
And how much have you had to invest in that in terms of your time, your energy? How difficult has it been to set up a business to work with your son?
We started the business in September of 2020, and about 2 years before that, as he was closer to retiring, I retired in 2020 when he graduated from the 18 Plus program. And so we used, as a teacher, I get a pension from Texas. And at the time, you had an opportunity to take You could take some of your pension as a lump sum. So I took some of that money, and which reduces the monthly benefit, but that's okay. To start the business, I had a previous business where I had a website and was selling educational materials in Texas. So I had a little bit of knowledge about how to do all that kind of stuff. But this is a whole different. That was educational materials. This is socks when we started, but it still had a little bit of a background in what able to do. But it took a lot of time to get started. Now it's pretty much on a daily basis. It's just checking the emails, checking to see if we have any orders. If we have orders and we fulfill those orders, there's accounting paperwork to do or website information to do about counting. So that takes some time once we get orders to keep track of everything for taxes and income taxes and sales taxes and so forth there. But I'd say it's just something that we just, something that they're doing. And it's all hours of the day. I mean, I'll be doing stuff at midnight, wake up at 5 a.m. and do that kind of stuff. So it's in weekends, but it's not, an 8-hour day kind of thing.
My wife and I have been talking about the expenses of the needs of our children. Not everything is covered by their insurance, and they do have state insurance as well because of their special needs, their disabilities. And yet I've had to freelance on the side. We have to put aside things. When I was teaching during the summer, I ended up working at a garden shop. You've gone through the same experience. And I think this is important. It's not just because teaching doesn't pay well. It's not just that. It is our children have extra expenses and extra needs.
Yes.
So we find ourselves juggling a lot of things. Can you tell the audience, because I think it's important for them to know, just how much you have been juggling to keep your finances even and to help support Samuel?
I've had, besides the teaching job that I had, I'm retired from that now, but I still have a part-time job. I started working for a local pizza company back in 1987, and I'm still there. I was a delivery driver, and then a few years ago, they went outside the company to do deliveries. And so I continued to stay inside and work there. So that a couple of days, there was at one point where I was working almost 30 hours a week besides my regular teaching job just to make additional money. As you said, we were fortunate enough to have insurance through my work. Samuel was covered under that. But you've got deductibles and you've got maximum family expenses, out-of-pocket expenses for that kicks in. He didn't make it to the top of the waiver list until he was 17. And then we applied for Medicaid and SSI at that time. But when you're underage, then they take into account the parent's income. But when he turned 18, then it all became based on him. So he qualifies. He currently gets SSI, Medicaid. So his Medicaid insurance picks things up. Then when I started collecting Social Security retirement back in 2020, after 2 years, Samuel became eligible for Medicaid. So he's under Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, SNAP benefits, all based on his income and so forth. So we've been very fortunate to have that as well. They don't pay a lot, but we're still having to continue to have the second job, even upon my my retirement benefits and so forth as well.
And you also, as a previous educator, you had a website for educational materials, but now you also contribute to Teachers Paying Teachers, correct?
Yes. And I'm thinking about, that's where my education materials are right now. And I'm thinking, possibly starting the website again just to sell myself to mainly school districts and things like that, rather than individual teachers. That's something I'm thinking about.
I want the audience to understand that every parent I have talked to who has started a small business to help a disabled child has ended up having to fund that for a very long time before it has either broken even or they have decided to move on. They have generally set these businesses up as nonprofits or direct trust. They have done their best to work with advisors, and yet it is not easy because these children, our children, our young adults, they have special needs. They don't work 9 to 5. They don't fit into a nice schedule sometimes, and so we end up picking up the slack. What has this process been like? You said you've been doing it now for a little bit over a year. Has Samuel started to get more involved, or is it still you're funding everything, keeping it going through your efforts, and it's still a goal, not a reality yet?
It's still a goal, not a reality. We were averaging about 3 to 4 orders a month. We recently had contacted a lot of different newspapers talking about, the need for changing hiring practices for autistic adults, because a lot of the companies, they don't really give an autistic person a chance to show their skill sets because the interview process and the job applications are not really helpful for them. And also about the need for supportive housing. When autistic adults they can't live with their parents anymore, they have a need for supportive housing. So I'd contacted a lot of newspapers in Texas, and one responded to the San Antonio Express News, and they did a story on. It was not just my family, but there was another family. So they had, with the same kind of things of what do you do when your child's an adult and you're preparing them for the future and you're no longer there. It's a very, very good story. We got a bunch of orders from that. I think we got 20 in all, but that's been a few weeks ago, and now we're back down to really nothing. So it's kind of take one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. The consistency of trying to get people to continue, to purchase from our company, just we're not gaining traction. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I said, we've had some news television stations do stories and things like that. When that kind of stuff comes out, then we get a bump in orders, but then it goes back to not too much. So we're struggling with trying to get consistency and to build up our audience and build up our customer base. And so the funding is again still through us. We're not making any money. We do this out of our home. So we don't have any overhead that way. So there's monthly expenses, there's insurance, there's credit card payments because we put a lot of our expenses on credit cards, the cost of the website, there's a few other costs. And if we do order additional inventory, which we do because some of our products sell out, then that's an additional expense. We pay for the internet service, telephone, that kind of stuff. But the income doesn't cover the expenses. So we do have tax refunds that we get every year from federal taxes. And so I use a lot of that refund to set aside to help make payments or cover costs during the course of the year. So that's where we're at right now with that.
The business idea is in large part then to help train Samuel more than to just make money.
It's both, yes. Uh-huh.
And what do you think Samuel is getting out of this experience that he wouldn't get otherwise?
Well, whenever he does work with the business, it's either myself is there or my wife is there like a coach, because leaving him on his own, he won't be able to do that. But we're trying to, as he does this more often, he's getting more used to it. Then he knows what to do. So we're wanting to leave him more by himself, still be in another room or maybe in the same room, but doing something different to allow him to be able to do that kind of stuff on his own. As the business does improve, we would like him to be able to do more. He's good at computers in terms of playing video games and watching videos and things like that. In terms of running, the business based, a lot of it's based on the computer. That I don't think he would be able to do that because you have to, you got to be very organized, and he's not very organized. He can remember things, but he's just a big mess. So in terms of remembering what to do, even with lists and pictures and stuff like that, I don't think he would still be able to do that because we, tried that with certain parts of the businesses. Here's what you do to put these things in the box, and you still have to kind of be there with them to do that. So I hope he's learning, but it's kind of hit and miss.
Did he have other employment in the past?
No.
So this is truly creating his first employment opportunity via this entrepreneurship with you.
Yes. He did do, when he was in the 18 plus program, they did do, where they would go to they would sell, said coffee and pastries. And so, I mean, he didn't get paid for that, but that was kind of like a little bit of a job they would do there. They would do that at the administration building, I think once a week kind of thing. So other than that, this is his first job.
What does he do now? Do you have him in a day program? Do you have him in supports now, even in his 20s?
Yes, we have he goes to an organization called United Partners. They're in a nearby town in Pflugerville, and it was started about 5 years ago. They just had their 5th anniversary. It's church-based. They started out in their fellowship hall of the church. A couple years ago, they bought a house, and now they meet in the house. He goes there 2 days a week from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. He could go 4 days a week, but it's private pay, and we can't afford it. So he goes 2 days a week, and when he's there, they do a lot of social things. They call them partners, and I think On Wednesdays, I think there's 12 partners there. On Tuesdays, I think there's 10. Wednesday, I think, is the most partners. So they're a small organization, but he's there to socialize. But they also have a store where their house is. There's an adjacent lot where they have a store, and the store is they make things in the United Partners and then sell them in the store. So that's there. So he does a lot of that during the day. I said they do a lot of socializing things, activities together as a group to help them with that kind of thing. And it's not just for autistic people. There's a variety of people that come to the United Partners, but that's just twice a week. Other than that, we do things with family members. We visit. He has an aversion for some reason to babies. I think it's because they're unpredictable. He doesn't like to be around babies. They can cry at a moment's notice. They're just not predictable. Once they get about 3 years old, he's fine with them. But we do have some family members that are younger, have babies, so we don't we don't spend a lot of time with him. But the older ones, we spend family time. We take trips around, day trips around, things like he likes to be in the car. I likes to drive around. And so he's always wanting to go somewhere. He likes spending time at hotels, but, with finances. So that's something that we just have to save for. So those are the kind of things that we do.
The day hab that he goes to 2 days a week, is that something that he anticipates and looks forward to, or is it something that he just does because you have him enrolled?
If you ask him, he would rather not go, as he goes Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And once he gets back on Wednesdays, it's kind of like a big sigh off, big sigh. And for the next couple of days, and he's fine. We get close to the weekend, he starts saying, "Oh, I have to go to United Partners on Tuesday." Once he's there, he loves it. I mean, we always are constantly talking to the people who run it. And once he's there, he laughs, he tells jokes, he works with the people. He just doesn't, when he's at home with us, he just doesn't want to go. But once he's there, he enjoys it. So it's kind of a mixed bag, therefore. There's a lot of things he gets anxious about, like when we have to go to the doctor. Even though he's been to the same doctor, and the doctor he goes to, he delivered Samuel. So he's been Samuel's doctor for 25 years. He still is anxious about it, still asks questions about it. And if he goes to the dentist, the same kind of thing. He's having a procedure done next week where he has to be put to sleep to do a deep clean because he just doesn't cooperate when he goes to the regular dentist. So he's always asking questions about that. So anything new, or even if he's been to it before, he still asks questions about it and still is anxious about it. So we're always dealing with that. And then once he's, we always tell him it's easier when you actually get there than always you worry about it too much and you build it up as a problem. But when it actually happens, it's not a big deal.
You said he likes to go in the car and he likes to stay at hotels. How is he in public? Does he like typical tourist attractions, or is there something else that he prefers to do?
He's always concerned about being close to people. He's very conscious of his space. He doesn't like to be bumped. That's what he says. I don't want to be bumped. When we go places, he's always has to be up against the wall so nobody can walk behind him. He likes, back in 2017, he started liking various Walmarts, and he would, check out videos on YouTube about Walmarts. And for some reason, he got obsessed with whenever they have announcements on Walmart. They used to have different signals. If you heard the signal, then there was going to be an announcement coming in the next couple of seconds. And there was one particular signal that sounds like a train horn. And he found this one place in Clifton Park, New York. We live in Texas. So we took a trip up to Clifton Park, New York. And the people there, they're wonderful people. We've developed friendship with the couple of the workers there. They're still there. And then we've been back a total of 4 times. Last time we went was 2022. Yeah, we've been there 4 times. So he likes that particular Walmart. We've tried to find, he always is on the lookout for other Walmarts that have that particular sound when they do the announcement. And unfortunately, over the last couple of years, Walmart has been getting rid of those, and they've been changing their announcements. And we're finding less and less of those places. So, but that's, he's focused on those kind of places. So, Walmart.
That's interesting. I would not have thought of Walmart as a tourist destination.
Yep. And as we would make the trips from Texas up to New York, he doesn't like to fly, so we would drive in a car. He would want to stop along the way at various Walmarts to see, just certain ones, and he'd pick them out on the way. And we'd build them into our schedule. and stop, and he would go in and he would be listening for the announcements just to see what their announcements are like. We'd spend maybe 15, 20 minutes in the store, and then we'd go on our way.
I was thinking, most families were thinking of amusement parks, right? Or museums or famous places, battlefields of the Civil War or the Revolution, and you're going to Walmart's.
Yes.
With that in mind, then he is not quite a homebody, but he would prefer to be alone. Is what it sounds like. He prefers his space on his terms.
Yes. And it seems to have gotten worse as he's gotten older. We used to, when he was a teenager, we would go, I would take him in the car because, I like to drive around. And if he wanted some food, I could leave him in the car for a few minutes. As this is a teenager, I could go inside, spend maybe 5 minutes inside getting the food and coming out, because not everybody has a drive-through. Last, I'd say 5 years, can't even do that. He doesn't always want to be with us in the same room, but he has to know we're there in the same house. If I'm going to drive him around, I'll back out of the garage in the driveway. I'll stop the car and we have an outside mailbox on the street. I'm going to go check the mail. So you're going to come back. Don't leave me alone. So he seems to somehow develop this fear of being left alone. We can't always be in the same room, but he would just always wants to know that we're nearby.
As we wind down, let me make sure I get this right. The link to SammySocksEtc.com, it's SammySocksEtc.com.
Yes.
So it's not two S's in the middle. So it's not Sammy's Socks. It's SammySocksEtc.com.
Yes.
Available on that site are the socks. You said some t-shirts, some gift packs, coffee, and tea.
Yes.
The coffee is from a local Texas company, you said. They're in Austin.
Yes, Farrah Coffee.
How did you make that connection with the coffee and the tea companies?
Well, I was looking, to help increase business, and, socks are kind of consumable, but it takes a while to wear them out. And I was looking for something that would be more, you have to order more often. And so I was looking around, and I tried several different coffee companies. That first I didn't have a lot to spend on inventory, and some of them, they wanted a whole lot of money initially. But I looked around and found Farrah Coffee, and they were able to, meet our needs with the different flavors. I tried them out first, and I liked the flavors that we offer. And so they deliver to our house if they order a certain amount, which is not very much. And so we've been successful with that. The tea, it's called steeped tea. It's in a tea bag. And, but it's a little bit bigger, so you get a little bit bigger amount of the tea grounds. But again, we'll try them out. We like the flavors that we're offering. They last quite a while. The expiration date's pretty good. So we order what we can and then sell the tea and coffee.
It was a pleasure to talk to you on this episode of Perspectives on Neurodiversity. I want to thank Mark Lyons for joining us and talking so openly about what it is like to be a parent of a young adult who's neurodiverse and is going to need those supports. For those parents who are considering something like setting up a business and trying to do this on their own, it sounds like you might have some advice and some caution for them.
It's expensive. You got to have funds to be able to, start it up. I said I had some previous experience about, with my other previous website about doing it that way. We don't have a storefront. I don't plan on probably down the road being able to do that. We have done some, what I call pop-up places where we'll sell here and there at different events, but it takes a lot of initial time to get it set up. You've got to research what you want to sell. You've got to research the platforms you want to sell on. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, that kind of stuff. You got to do that. You can sometimes spend a lot of time just working on those areas. It just depends on how much time you want to put into it. We started this when I was still working full time, but and it took a couple of years to do it. But once I've retired, I'm able to devote all my time to that. But it does take a lot of time. You always don't know what you don't know. We're always learning as we go. Sales tax is different now. They never used to charge sales tax on online purchases, and that changed a few years back. So that's a whole nother thing you have to be concerned about. And is sales tax, income tax, not such a big deal. Most people. Right now we're a sole proprietorship, so that's how we do the taxes that way. Yeah, it's still a learning experience. And if you can find somebody that knows things about it, like I've joined the local chamber of commerce, and there's been some people there that have helped me with some different things I didn't know about in terms of marketing and what to do with the business and stuff like that. So that helps too.
I will include links to SammySocksEtc.com in the show notes. I will also provide other links if possible to the social media, which would include, you said Facebook, you're on Facebook and other social media. So I'll have those links as well in the show notes. Again, I want to thank Mark Lyons for joining us on Perspectives on Neurodiversity. I thank you for listening. Remember, if you like this podcast, be sure to leave a review and share it. I appreciate the audience so much, and I hope that you found this episode informative and educational. Thank you so much, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you.